You're just mad that Rachel and I were so good in the last episode, and you're like, I'm not going to be able to top it.
You guys are so funny about Dave's going to be mad that we don't know facts about the show. Basic facts.
Every time I was like, David is screaming at us right now.
No, it's actually really funny that was a thing.
When we couldn't remember Mayor John's, I know you were screaming at us. You were like, it's John's! It's John's!
No, I was like sitting there with my little keyboard mouse setup going, I'll wait.
They'll figure it out.
Skip to the part where they figured it out and then see they look a little less dumb.
And then we did.
Then they out themselves, and now that we know that you're dumb.
You don't ever have to make me not look dumb. That is who I am. It is part of my personality.
It's part of my DNA.
I am fine with that.
So Andy's like, it's okay. It's fine to not know. It's kind of like a one of those movies that ends with the mysteries. Like, are the people ghosts? Or, we don't know. It's fun. And then Kelly's like, that's not fun, and everyone hates those movies.
I'm the Andy, basically. I'm the Andy.
And apparently I'm the Mindy. Ugh, I don't like that theory.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing programs beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news. Sometimes we make you laugh. Most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by
CosmoMom09.
And Bridget. You can find me at ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER.
Today we're here to talk to you about Silo's 7th episode of its 2nd season titled The Dive. I felt like singing that for some reason. I don't know why.
Nailed it.
Thanks, though. We have a little bit of housekeeping.
Oh, okay.
In case you wanted to know the totals for our penny raffle for Helene Relief, we left a post in our Ko-fi and Patreon stating that we had earned a total of
$1,877.
And we split that between North Carolina Community Foundation and Brother Wolf Animal Rescue. And we just sent those amounts today. It makes me really, really happy to do so. If you want to continue giving, I highly recommend you do so. Head on over to our Ko-fi page. It's only a few posts down from the top. Our pin post being the one now back to our studio recordings for you to join us. When you follow us for free on Ko-fi and Patreon, it's free to follow. It's free to join us in the studio. You just have to follow so you know what things are going on, like our recording sessions and other free things that we like for you to be a part of, including there's the donation thing. That's a free post too. There are links there for you to head directly to the donation pages for North Carolina Community Foundation and Brother Wolf Animal Sanctuary. I highly recommend you do that. And let's continue with this episode, which is called, Bridget's going to give me crap about this for some reason. It's called The Dive. So let's talk about the title. What does that mean? What does The Dive mean in terms of this title?
Joke's on you. I actually looked at it before this episode started.
Well, it's too bad we're not starting with you. We're starting with Rachel.
What?
That's fine.
I knew you'd be prepared for some odd reason. And who doesn't like it when Bridget hates me more? Everybody loves it. Everybody.
I think it's a really nice part of the podcast.
Why does everybody hate Dave, and why does everybody enjoy watching the hate?
It's relatable.
Inquiring minds.
And honestly, it's because Dave is like a brother to me, truly. That's why.
Facts. That's why we're so mean to him, because we love him so much. I'm way meaner to my real brother.
Viciously mean, right?
Vicious. Yeah. If I can make him cry, it's a good day.
So to see that nothing's changed since their youth.
No, I just use my words instead of my fists now.
That's a relief. Okay. Well, in terms of the dive, Rachel, there's the obvious and there's the not so obvious.
There's the obvious dive, which is what Juliet does, right? She dives underwater to fix this pump. There's also the dive of knowledge that Lucas Kyle is taking.
The deep dive, yeah.
Yes.
The deep dive into the books and this strange electronic device that was handed over to him. And he's like, me, anytime there's a new technology, and he's like, how do I use this? And Bernard's like, just talk to it. And I'm like, on.
Lucas Kyle is an iPad kid now.
Yeah.
And so now I expect him to talk like an iPad kid.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what that is. What is that?
Oh, he's going to be like, widowy.
Oh, maybe I don't know what that is either.
Remember, Dave, when we were recording
I do, but I'd like you to explain it to people.
Because I'm confused as well.
It's a character in TikTok, right?
Yeah,
you
whenever
mentioned
people
something like
do iPad kid
Is
stuff
this an
on
actual
TikTok,
kid?
no,
Oh.
no, it's
Oh,
just
okay.
like
imitation.
yeah, it's
Okay.
just an imitation of like kids that are chronically online, like yours
Okay.
truly.
And they don't really talk to other kids or people.
Yeah,
And so they have
so-
this speech
So
impediment
they don't
thing.
know how to
And
talk?
they'll say things like "widowy" or "blah."
Listen, blah.
Oh.
I'm widowy
Oh.
trying to speak to my iPad. Widowy.
Okay.
Would kindly request Avi Nash. I need you to change the way that you're speaking. For the rest
I will
of
make
the
this
show.
my mission, Bridget,
Be
to make
an
this
iPad
happen.
kid.
To cite some
Please?
lines from the show using iPad kid voice.
Yes, I love
gosh.
it.
I will pay for it just to have it done. Avi Nash,
We're all ordering
will you
an
be our
HBO.
friend? Yes. And I adore that part because, again, I mentioned this, I think it was the first or second episode of this season, how I was going crazy about the voice activation everything and how cool that was that was a thing. And you guys were looking at me like, what's the big deal?
We didn't understand what you were talking about.
Right.
so-
I know you didn't. That's
Right.
fine. But seeing Avi Nash react like he's holding the tablet with his two hands up near his chin, and he's like, how?
Yeah. What do I
What do you
do?
mean talk to it? What? Yes, that
That's
is
me.
the appropriate reaction though for
Yeah.
a person who's never dealt with voice activated anything. And I thought that was so significant, and that he reacted in kind was just perfect, especially for somebody as smart as he is. Clearly smart and curious. So thank you for that.
I'm glad that got brought up too during the conversation between Bernard and Sims. I was going to say, I keep wanting to call him Common.
And common.
In common. And Bernard basically said what we have also said about Sims. He's a follower. He follows the rules. He does what he's told. He's a good soldier. He's not curious. He does not want answers. He wants to be told what to do.
There's a little bit more nuance to that, but I don't disagree with you. You see that in his interactions with he and Camille as well.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to do things the right way.
He doesn't have the natural inquisitiveness that Lucas has.
Also, his trickery is limited to making the maneuvers within the confines of the law, whereas
Camille is like more willing to kind of break the rules to
and
make
Bernard
things happen.
is
Yeah, that's
willing
true.
to go a little bit further out of bounds
That's
because
true.
they have the nuts. Because Bernard knows things that people don't usually know, and Camille's like, "Well, why don't you just do this? It's really easy." And,
Can we just say that she's pro rebellion? It's becoming
no,
more obvious to me.
I'm so glad you asked that though.
on here.
That is a great question, really, to
Mhm.
bring up because not really. She's trying to play both sides. And she's like, well, whoever wins, at least I'll be recognized as somebody who was on the right side for that moment.
I see. Hedging
She's
her
pro
bets.
Camille.
I like it.
Yeah, she's hedging back. She
Likes it.
says that in this episode. She goes, we don't know who's going to win. Bernard sucks. And also the mechanical sucks. So
Heavy on the Bernard sucks though, like for real.
Yeah.
true. But for as long as Bernard is doing all right, she'll be with Bernard. But if it's clearly his tether is running thin, she's like, well, but it wouldn't hurt to get some credit with mechanical because they won the last rebellion, right? Just kidding. I didn't want to bring that up, but here we are. But I'm glad you guys did such a great job in the last episode when it came to Camille. And it's not even because of answers or theories or anything like that. The fact that you really focused in on her and said she's doing 4D chess here while everybody else is playing checkers, except for maybe Bernard. But Bernard's kind of losing it. He's losing his focus.
Big time.
He's being pulled in too many directions. He can't be everything to everyone all of the time. And so that's why he had to appoint a shadow, because he has to let that part go to be able to focus on everything else that's going on, because he's wearing the two hats.
Something that you
Mayor
brought up in the
and-
last episode.
Yeah.
And I brought up in the second episode, I think it was, that bothered me because there's so many little things throughout both season 1 and season 2 that got us to where we are today. And that is definitely one of them, him being mayor and head of IT. If he would at least hold one, and you guys brought up the whole, well, Sims could bring up, hey, it's time for an election. I love that too. I'm not bringing all this up to just say how great your conversation was in the last
That's
episode.
okay. You can
But
keep-
because of his confrontation, Bernard's confrontation with Sims in this episode, I felt that was going to be a possibility a lot more. And considering the fact that Sims, Robert Sims, is kind of a by the book kind of guy. It's hard for him. It's not as though he's not a shady person and can do shady things. It's just that he does it in a way that is within the confines of his job or in the confines of the law in a weird way, or his duty or his job at least. Oh, what can I do within my duty to do these things, not outside my duty? It's soft or hard, Rachel. Doesn't matter to Sims.
Duty.
He said,
"You're welcome."
duty.
Which is kind of, I'll say that again, admirable.
I was shocked and pleased to see him standing up to Bernard too, telling him, no, you can't have this warrant.
And to his wife in a way. Because admittedly, the one thing that I wanted to focus on as far as that conversation goes was, yes, there's a possibility that she was throwing herself on the pyre so that she could disclaim Robert from any of these happenings. She could say, it was all me. I did not talk to my husband. I'm the one who brought them down to mechanical. I'm the one who saved them. And Robert could be absolved of that. Did she think it was going to work? Probably not, like you were saying, Bridget, but it was worth a shot. But it is something that she said in this episode. And Robert's just like, how about no? How about stop it?
Yeah, Robert stood up quite a bit this episode for himself, which it was nice to finally see it, especially since as an actor, Common is very known for playing these rough, tumble characters.
Imposing.
Yes, and he was that at the beginning of this, but then we're slow as it's like being peeled away, you're kind of realizing that's not at all really how he is. And actually, I don't love this version of him. I'd like him to be the tough, intimidating person that I assume that he is, because that's what he gives off, the air about him. He gives a relic to his kid because he's like, screw you, I'm going to do what I want.
Well, he's pulling a Meadows in a way. He's like, well, now that I got them,
I'm going to do this without telling you because you're not telling me things. So this is how I'm like kind of counteracting that. What I love the most about all of this interaction, where he stands up against Bernard, and also he's kind of taking the advice of Camille, but not really, because she says, wait for him to come to you. And instead of that, he sends a note to say, well, you got to come to me now or you're not getting what you want. Mm-hmm. And it was a very Sims way to like flip that, because he's still saying like, I need you to come talk to me. But he's also saying like, but I have what you need.
Forcing the conversation.
Yes.
You're still coming to me, but I'm making it so you kind of have to.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed finding out that that was why Bernard placed him in that position. We knew that it was kind of to get him out of the way, but to have him say aloud,
your job is
don't want
stupid.
to talk to you anymore.
Right.
I'm done talking to you. That's why you're here.
That's a really good point, because and kind of why I love this series is because they do a lot of show don't tell. But sometimes in emotional moments like this, when they say, I was trying to get rid of you, I rubber stamp and goodbye, and I don't have to interact or interface with you ever again because you're going to do what I say and go home and that's your life, you dummy. I love that because you can do the tell don't show in a way that actually has an impact.
Well, it's human nature. When we get so fired up and
let me spell it out for
pissed, we love to, that's when we're giving our soliloquies. No, this is why you piss me off. I have to say this out loud now because we've gotten to this point. It's escalated to this point.
Because you're just not getting it.
You have to know why I'm mad.
Did you get it? Did you get it, Robert? Yeah, I got it, Bernie. I love how he called him Bernie.
And what a dig. Yeah, Bernie.
I wanted him to call Robert Bobby Sims. It's like they're friends, but they're not friends anymore. Bobby.
My dad had a friend named Bob Sims growing up.
Now the glass is broken, and forever now you'll call him Bobby Sims all the time. No, you'll still call him Common.
He's always going to be why I call him Common. It's not Bob.
It's not Bob. Now he's Bob, but like now you can't get out of your head. He's like, oh, now he's forever Bobby from the block. You're just walking down the street.
Since they introduced the character, I was like, oh, Bob Sims. I know Bob Sims.
Well, he's a great guy.
He is a great guy. Anyway,
there you go. So I wanted to address what you said, Bridget, about seeing Common a certain way in his roles. I thought I love this because I had always, from the first recap that we did, but also from the first time I watched it, I was like, but is he threatening? Because he's super charming.
Oh, he's really charming. And that's the allure of Common, I guess, as a person.
Not always, though.
The thing is, he's a very good looking man. He's got a great voice. Speaking voice is just, it's impactful. Now, part of that is like this whole persona that you build up as a rapper. There's like a dangerous element to it, especially for the era in which he was popular. That was kind of the cultivated thing. Not like today. Drake, I'm looking at you.
He's got he had a little of that, but I take your point.
But in history, seeing him in other things, it's often the role he takes. So it must be either the roles that he's offered exclusively, or they're the roles that he feels comfortable taking because he feels like he can play well within that. It's fine. I have acted a little, and I loved roles for characters that were extremely emotionally volatile. I can really live in that. And so that was okay for me. I enjoyed that. Those were the roles I really liked.
As an actor, that is not unique to you. I will say.
Yeah, no.
Maybe it's because of Stephen Sondheim or something like that. Maybe that has a lot to do with Sondheim. But typically the roles that are given to females are this volatile chaos character.
Oh, yeah.
And the women who audition
or her best friend
relish in that part. And I'm like, gender roles are real. And it really put me off as an actor because now you're meant to do everything because you have to basically carry this great, first of all, in performance of somebody losing their mind.
When I say emotionally volatile, I don't necessarily mean in that way.
The battered wife or the neglected wife or keep going.
One of my favorite roles was in the Laramie Project. I played the sheriff answers the 911 call for Matthew Shepard. And I've probably spoken on this before, but it's very emotional because that sheriff is exposed potentially to bloodborne pathogens because she does get blood all over her because Matthew Shepard was beaten so badly. And then because of Matthew Shepard and the crisis of HIV and AIDS happening at the time, tests were not immediate back then. So it's like she's waiting on this test to come back and she's terrified that she could be sick. And she's married. And so there's like this whole aspect of it that one, she's dealing with the trauma of seeing someone so badly beaten, but then two, also dealing with kind of like the
personal crisis.
The personal crisis that comes along with it. Anyway, that was one of my favorite roles because it's really raw, kind of this trauma dumping that you're getting because Laramie Project is really written like a bunch of trauma dumps. You're giving these forward-facing soliloquies to the audience, monologues, I should say, these like long monologues that you're giving. It's what I know, so it was like easy for me to slip into that character. Not in that way. It was like, oh, you're worried about a bunch of stuff? Okay, totally get that. So when I say volatile, I mean like raw, I guess is really what I mean. But anyway, yes,
that's kind of what I was saying.
Female characters in theater are, well, just do better. Playwrights now.
Playwrights now, yeah, which I think they are. But so actually to kind of go back to what I was saying about Common though, and as Sims, we talked about M. Night Shyamalan, I think before we went on, but in a sense, the fact that you see Robert one way from the start and you're seeing him in a completely different light and perspective is like an M. Night Shyamalan twist because you have this impression that is completely shifted from the time you first saw him to the end.
We have found out during this podcast that Dave cannot say M. Night Shyamalan.
No, you keep calling him Shalaman.
Shalaman, you keep saying like shaman, like you're like cutting out the middle syllable.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time maintaining my voice. M. Night Shyamalan.
No. No.
Shyamalan.
There you go.
Shyamalan.
Shyamalan. It's very funny to me.
Shalom.
I will.
Shalom, Malaman. Shalom, man.
No.
Rastafarian Jew.
Oh.
Sorry.
No.
It does give Common the ability to like kind of stretch his legs in terms of acting, which has been cool. When I say like it's off
brand.
It's off brand, but it's upsetting to me because it makes me view him like in a way that I didn't view him before, in which he comes off as like a little bit weaker and vulnerable. And so something about that kind of puts me on edge, but that's probably intentional.
Yeah, it's like all your boogeymen become, I'm trying to think of a word that isn't insulting. They're little marshmallow creatures now.
When you saw the other side of the saviors during All Out War in The Walking Dead, same thing. We see their side of it. They're at a station and a bunch of people come in and literally just off everyone there.
Or in the Whispers, you see behind the veil of the Whisperers.
Yeah, you like start
it's
to
just
see
people.
Who you view as the villain also has an origin story. And it isn't always that they're bad. It's kind of an overdone trope now in media, but
your bad guy's just human.
That's what I kind of like about the Sims characters, that you get this inkling of, but is he threatening? and you can see what he can do. And then you get to this point where, oh, well, not everything about him is super imposing. And that the kernel of all his actions has always been A, really about the silo and its protection, and B, that all of these moves that he's doing, it's not even about being terribly self-motivated. It's more about, I want to be in a position to help even more than I am currently. It feels like at least that's what that is for him. About Camille, we're still not sure. It seems to me that Camille is making her moves more shady to get to where they want to go. But at the same time, I could still see a world in which their goals are aligned. They still want the same thing. And it's less about selfish motivations than it is, we want to be in a better position to be able to help the silo, let's say, or at least be in a better position for our children and ourselves.
I want that to be the case, but I'm not 100%
Yeah,
sure
I'm not
about
either.
it yet.
I'm not either. And thanks to your conversation, really not sure from last week, because you're right. She's playing on many, many different levels, and some of which we can't completely 100% see. Now, Robert is in the same position as we are. We're like, well, she gaslit me today to not talk to Bernard Holland. Had I not talked to him, I wouldn't have figured it out, because he said, did you know that he saved Knox and Shirley? Did you know? I guess because you guys talk about everything. I guess you know. No, I didn't know. But I had my common face on saying, yeah, I knew. I didn't know. See, common face works. When you know that it's common face, it's like, oh, but he really doesn't know. I see. Common face. I love it. See, this is why I love the title, because we go so many different directions that we definitely wanted to go to immediately. On my end, I thought it was really cool and ironic that the dive was really the message being sent upward from the deep down.
Yeah.
Oh,
In a way, I thought that was an interesting form of irony, because still, when it gets to the top, that rocket, the messages dive down, or at least slowly dive down.
Float down.
Yeah, they all float down here.
I come in here to watch the episode and I have like the bedroom door open. My mom is here visiting and she's on the sofa. And when I get out to like grab water and stuff, she's like, are you going to be recording now? Or are you done watching the episode? And I'm like, yeah, I am. I have to start recording though. And she's like, well, whatever you're watching elicited a lot of reaction, because I was just like, oh, oh my God, what? Like over and over again. It was insane.
That was me with Lucas Kyle, by the way, for sure. The week beforehand. Literally, this is the only reason why I wanted to be a part of last week's episode, but couldn't be. It was because of the fact that this is another one of those, Evelyn's in the other room. Actually, no, she was sitting right next to me when it was happening. And she just leaves. And that part, because it's the end of the episode, that part happens and she goes, what? And I'm like, whoa, and then I get up, full up. I'm like, what? And she comes back, she sits down next to me and she sees the rest of the part. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Rachel called it. And I'm like, wait, what?
Has Evelyn been watching it?
Just bits of it. Sometimes we get to the point where you're watching shows together and we're like, I'm all TV'd out. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
I guess we'll just put on something that I watch. And then she'll be there reading a book or whatever. And occasionally she'll look up and she'll go, huh. And she'll look back down at her book. But this part, she could not have not reacted, but she could not have been like, wait, what's happening to you in this moment?
That's how Silo was for Trav and I for those brief couple weeks where he kept being like, oh, isn't that guy or whatever? And you're like,
oh, it goes on Walking Dead, right?
Watching this. We're watching this. What's happening right now?
That guy was from Jacob's Ladder. Okay, bye. Tim Robbins?
Is that
Facial hair
common?
looks good on him. It does though, right? Anyway.
It does actually. He looks
He looks good.
Tim Robbins, he looks good. He does look good in this show.
Agreed. A, it's unfair that men can age, or we perceive men as aging better than women usually. And B, I am fully sympathetic to people who feel like they have to do things like that to feel relevant or in the business or whatever.
Well, it's a natural inclination. So I started to get these smile lines.
What lines?
And thank you. I have a good ring light. As I'm getting older, these are getting deeper because it's just part of what happens when you lose collagen in your face as a woman, like over time. And so suddenly it's starting to get a little more jowly than I would like it to. And I told Travis, I was like, I'm going to get filler in my face. And he's like, what? why? And I was like, I just feel like if I got filler, I feel like I would look better. This like weird push to be
Impulse.
like, yeah. And the thing is like filler wouldn't fix it because it would migrate and it would make me look worse over time. I looked it up, but that thought was like, it's only a couple $100. Like I could save up a couple $100 and go get filler. Do I have a couple $100 to go get filler? No, I do not.
I could get a coupon.
Would I be convinced of doing that? Maybe. Do I want discount rate plastic surgery?
Oh yeah, right.
Definitely not.
Right. Right.
But-
Right. There's the danger of couponing.
Yeah. That is the problem. I don't want to pay
The
full
dark
price
side.
really for anything. I get it. It's there. I don't even live in that world. And I'm like starting to look a lot older, even though I just really have an expressive face. And I've done this to myself over time.
Yeah.
My
I
own
feel
fault.
that actually. Yeah. And so
Color your
Evelyn-
hair a funky color and everyone will think you're younger than you are.
Great.
Ooh, unless it does the opposite effect of what you think it will, which
I think it would.
has happened.
Not
Here's
usually.
the problem.
Not usually. You're right.
No, I'm
but
not
still,
gonna say
when
this.
it doesn't
Actually, I'm not
work.
gonna say this when we're recording. Okay, let's continue.
Let's continue. Tim Robbins has ages gracefully. Okay. All right. See, so I listened to your conversation last week, obviously, and you guys were a little annoyed about the Shirley Knox thing. So I could not get it out of
I
my
was
head.
not.
That
I
was
was
just me.
not.
It was
More
only me.
on the Rachel side, but you were
Yeah.
you were like there. You were like, I see what you're saying, and I agree, but also if things are gonna end.
No, I said,
Grab the
Knox
nearest
is a
person. You know what I'm saying?
good looking guy. Like,
Yeah, I know.
come on.
Absolutely.
You're not
This
too good
man
for
is
that.
stepping up.
Knox is good looking.
However,
Shirley.
Oh.
I'm gonna skip this conversation. So it's safer
call,
for me to
good
say
call.
Knox is a
Opinions.
babe.
just keep rolling on
All
past
right,
that.
Shirley's a bit sexy, but it's fine. All Knox wants to do is talk about. So why did you kiss me? I'm Shane McRae.
Love that.
with
Yeah,
my
he
gruff
grabs her
voice.
hand.
Yeah.
She's like,
he goes.
she goes to punch him, and he like holds her hand. And I was like,
Right, but
oh my
the
gosh.
context of that is like, you know why people hate you is because you're really annoying. And then, and then she goes to punch him, and he catches it. He's like, oh, okay, I like that. But then I could not stop thinking of Rachel, at least. Well, maybe a little bit of Bridget. Shouldn't you be worried about what's happening right now? Shouldn't you be doing your jobs? Listen, we can walk and chew bubblegum, okay,
They're
folks?
busy leading a revolution. They need to blow off some steam, okay?
Listen, I happen to agree with you, Bridget. So, but given the fact that I heard that conversation, I could not get out of my head that somebody's going to be annoyed about this. And maybe that's not a wrong impulse, too. Then again, TV writing is interesting because sometimes you just have to do it. Because sometimes you need that extra dimension to all this. Call it levity, call it comedy. It's almost sitcom-y comedy where it's like, oh, okay, you just can't all be doom and gloom down in the silo.
Yeah, you need some comedic relief to kind of break it up. So there has to be the little moments of reprieve.
The guy who played Marnes is no longer in the show as of many episodes. And he had some moments.
I know, I miss
It
him.
was so good. Some of his lines were so funny and so endearing, too. Which I don't know why I can't remember his name. I made such an effort to try to remember the actor's name, but now
He's a
fails
that
me.
guy, unfortunately.
He's definitely a that guy. But what did you guys think of that slapsticky, meet cute kind of comedy that was going on? Did you have a reaction, Rachel?
I'm going to be honest. I stepped away from the TV in that moment. I heard the lines.
Why did you kiss me?
I could hear it from the other room, but I did not have a visual. And he's like, yeah, I heard, why did you kiss me? And she's like, you kissed me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've heard this on every show ever written on the face of the planet. This is so stupid.
Que sera, sera.
Yeah.
Some things never change.
I didn't kiss you. You kissed me. No, you kissed me.
She's right, though. I think he did kiss her. I think that's actually what happened.
I
I
don't know.
don't care.
It to some degree, yeah, okay. It's a tropey thing that they're doing, and it's like, yeah, it's been done a bajillion times. But I don't know. Sometimes it brings me back to like being a teenager. That's what it really reminds me of. Because that was like the height of that kind of level of flirting for me. The whole like hitting and you're an idiot. That whole thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it just brings me back to that, and something about it makes me like get kind of like giddy, like the squealing, like kicking my legs kind of thing. I don't know. It's stupid.
Did it work
I
out
mean,
for
it did-
you? because I had those moments too, but it never worked out in my favor. I would then have to watch this guy kiss my best friend, and I'm like, cool for you.
That's my one step too far.
That's my teenage experience.
Meanwhile, I'm like, it worked out all the time for me.
Oh no, never worked out for me.
Never worked out for me.
A hopeless romantic who was in love with so many people. Unrequited was my middle name.
Okay,
it was
yes,
my whole life.
I had that too.
100% facts.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: you wouldn't think it from looking at me and knowing me on the show, but I had some style. I had some pizzazz. Pizzazz is not a good word.
Pizzazz is not the
I'm
word.
sorry. You landed how many by saying things like pizzazz? I don't believe you, sir.
I don't know. He has Riz. It's hidden somewhere. It's secret
not
Riz.
hidden. This is it. This is what gets it. This is like, yeah.
David has that genuineness about him, and I think that's where the Riz is.
When I would meet a girl that my brother was dating and I'm like, she's really pretty. Why? Do you know what I mean? I think it's because we view you like a brother. So like my first question to Evelyn was, so Evelyn, you're a smoke show. How did Dave land you?
Why this?
It's because he's funny.
Yeah.
Part of it. Yeah.
Because you're funny.
Part of it,
the charming, the funny. Yeah. I think that's it. That's it.
No, I only like guys who are mean to me. So
And as it turns out, that's not always flirting. Sometimes they just don't like you.
Yeah, no, I know. I need to tell my teenage self that because it did not end well.
It was rough a lot for me.
Yeah.
Clearly hate myself.
Me too. It's why I go to therapy.
But we can laugh about it now.
Maybe. It's like, what? This is Rachel. This is Rachel in every interaction where somebody's hitting on her. Why do you like me? Stop it.
Yes.
So you're embarrassing yourself right now. You're embarrassing yourself.
Yeah.
Please stop it.
Yeah.
You over there, can you swear and flick a lit cigarette at me? This way I can actually acquiesce.
Yes.
You're horrible. You're a horrible person. I'm interested.
You're like,
You're the devil I know, folks.
Oh, do you have a criminal background of some kind? Great. I'll meet you in 10.
Sorry.
Yep.
I want just like slap you. Just like love yourself, you idiot.
It just happens.
Yep.
It's okay.
And yet I fully identify with that feeling, which is why I'm able to accurately represent it. So,
It's true.
anyway, moving on. Happily. Okay, beyond the Knox and Shirley flirting, one of my favorite moments of this episode, aside from anything with Lucas Kyle and Bernard Holland and all the technical stuff, which we will get to, I liked it when they cornered Maeve and Knox steps up and really shows. Because if you had doubts, and you might have, about Knox and his leadership qualities, they're completely ameliorated after that scene with him.
The whole scene was so good. One, you get to see Hank be like, just such a good, I'm like, if Billings is still the sheriff after this, Hank is going to be his deputy. Because like,
Billy
Hank is the
Postlethwaite.
man. Well, it was so good. It was such a great way for him to kind of piece everything together. Francis overreacting that way, it's like it clicked for him finally. He's like, oh, she was right to be suspicious. Or
she wanted to take care of the problem.
Or he was intentionally riling her up, knowing that she would go kind of like show off where the person was.
It's typical Hank. He kind of goes in like, well, maybe she knows something. And then all of a sudden, there's a problem down in the cafeteria. Okay. Yeah. I stepped in it and here we're going to fix it.
I loved it. It was so good. I have to admit something during the Knox leadership portion, and maybe you felt it too. I felt like Knox was going to die.
Eventually or in that moment?
Afterwards?
No, upcoming. Something about it was so well delivered.
Final.
And I just thought like, he's such a good leader. He'd be so good. And he doesn't go in hot like Shirley. And I feel like he's going to die. And then Shirley's going to, do you know what I mean? She's going to be like,
that would suck.
A runaway train.
Yeah.
But that's good storytelling.
So you're saying those would be great if those were his last words.
Well, it's more
Kinda like that.
Maybe Rachel and I co-wrote this show. We'll have to see.
She gets an assistant writer credit.
I would be very worried though if that were to happen, only because there's not really, well, I mean, I suppose there's Hank, but I don't think Hank really wants to step into like that big of a leadership role.
No.
I don't see anyone else being able to.
He said he doesn't want to.
It would be
Exactly.
miserable. But that would mean like, what if
our
this
mechanical
happens?
Ooh, that's not good news bears for our
Shirley
for
would
our
be
mechanical.
Shirley's the shadow, so she would be the one to take over.
Yeah,
That's
but
my whole
Shirley
thing.
sucks. I mean, come on.
It's not.
Shirley
It's not
sucks.
that. It's just that she's too emotionally driven. She
Yeah,
comes out swinging. It's
absolutely.
the type of person.
And if
Literally in this
Knox-
episode, she
Since
goes
she
to
was
hit
I
it.
know.
child,
And if
that's why we got the setup that we did, where she's kind of like fighting with the boys
Mhm.
when she's younger. All of this was to be set up that like she is emotionally driven. She's really gung ho.
Right.
She doesn't think before she acts. She kind of puts her
Well,
mouth
we've
like
seen that.
her foot in it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that's just who she is. So
Absolutely.
that's
If
why
Knox
to
dies,
me this was like that's the natural path that this takes. However, I've been wrong a lot with this show because the things that would normally happen in the show where I would like be able to play it all out, it's not the case because the show
Or
is written
typically
really
that would
well.
happen in any other show is what you're saying.
Yes.
Where they
Oh,
lead you down a garden
fair.
path. And yeah. You could say that's an M. Night Shyamalan.
David.
Shyamalan.
Anyway, Shyamalan
Oh my
twist.
gosh.
And I kind of agree with what you're saying because, and I'm very glad that you brought up the whole, we discover in this season that Knox and the rest of the boys in Mechanical took Shirley down to the Digger Chasm and left her there and turned the lights off, if you remember
Rude.
that story. But that's supposed to also illustrate the way she steps up and says, Knox, the judge is an empty suit or
Yeah.
empty robe is what she says, which
Yeah, that's what it
illustrates
was.
that she's playing the game. And she's saying, oh, you're right. I can't go in hot. And here's what I think now. I'm taking what you said and I'm building on it. And I'm saying, hey, buddy, I don't have to always go in hot. I know things.
It would push her over the edge.
Could push her over the edge.
Yeah.
But just like the Digger Chasm story of her as a kid, when she has to, she will not lose it. She will crawl and feel the walls and find her way out of it because that's kind of what it feels like to be in this kind of situation. You can't go in hot because you can feel the weight of the entire silo. It depends on you, mostly Mechanical. And the scene that we just had with Knox stepping up as leader, everybody feeling their place in Mechanical, feeling like that's what it means to be Mechanical. Her accepting the pieces of this is something else I wanted to clear up just to kind of get my understanding. In the beginning of the episode, they do a lot of flipping back and forth between different areas of the silo throughout this entire episode, which is interesting, but this is one of them. They flip between silo 17 and then quickly to 18, and then they go to Shirley in the cafeteria accepting what looks like stacks of paper. Now, is that the paper that they use to tear up and write notes in for the rocket
That was my
thing?
assumption.
Okay. I just want to make sure because the way the last guy made it seem was like,
He's like, I wish I had more. He was handing
Yeah.
over something special.
but what does that say about if it is paper?
So
what does it say about paper?
I
Mhm.
actually wondered that when you
Thinking
see
deeply.
Lucas Kyle
Yeah.
grab that notebook and he starts frantically writing because he's trying to decode the cipher when he realizes it's numerical instead of alphabetical. I was like, how did they get paper in the silo? And then I thought about all of the sheets of paper flying in the wind and him writing on blank paper. And how is that possible? Because
Trees
they don't
and
have
felling.
any books really. And then I thought they must be recycling every bit of paper, which means any note ever written by a family member or your ancestors, are you required to turn those over? That's all I could think of was like, these would be these precious pieces of a link to your past and you would have to let it go. And
Records.
so he only brought like the one thing that he could, that man, because that was all he had, but I'm sure it meant something to him.
Just like anything else that has to be recycled when somebody passes away or whatever, and they have to make more room, and they have to take their stuff. It's part of the culture. And so the fact that they still have them, first of all, Mechanical, because they seem to skirt all the rules and they seem to have some of the relics, at least. Whatever makes it down to the down deep. Not much, but paper at least makes it down to the down deep. I think it's a great point to kind of make, Bridget. Paper is scarce. It's recycled. Think about it. What you're saying is that over and over again, these records and these links to our own past individually are constantly written over.
Well, and they've got to use them for record keeping, things like in the sheriff's offices.
The porters.
Yeah, like they have to
giving
use those. So
messages.
like I'm sure you having your own personal paper is a really big deal.
Privilege, sure.
And I'm sure there's not much of it because I just thought that that was so unusual that Lucas had the notebook because we haven't really seen people write on anything other than scraps. Judicial would need it, or it goes to the places that actually need it so nobody gets to have their own paper, which as someone who really likes writing myself notes makes me devastated.
Oh, and there's a concerted effort in the beginning of the series showing the typewriters that the sheriff's office has, the secretary, whom we see, by the way, infrequently we see Sandy. That's her name. I have to constantly try to remember her name.
She's
Sandy
on
with the cropped
Sheriff
hair.
Billings' side. Let me just say, she's a skeptic.
Yeah, so why was IT Power still on? This is what she says.
I love the look that she gives that woman that's standing next to her. The sheriff
She's
that
like,
we've seen her.
yeah.
We've seen her before too. She worked in Billings's office.
She has a name too.
Yeah, and they share a look, and I was like, yeah.
Oh, because they're the ones that came down to the garden, the Pete Nichols garden, which is what I'm calling it, when they were traveling upwards. They meet them halfway to help them get through the barricades.
escort.
Yeah. She has two names too. She has a first name and a last name too. She's an actual deputy in the midst. But Bernard did deflect that question quite expertly. Mm-hmm. Yes, they have control of the power, so they could selectively turn off the power. They're just trying to make me look bad.
I love that he ran away and turned off the lights.
That was the best. Okay, admittedly.
Come on, bro.
Funny.
But he's good. How ridiculous Tim Robbins, I'm going to say Tim Robbins, looks in all these scenes. And the faces he makes. Carla, even in this episode, she's like, tell me how those idiots are doing. And he gives her, it's just a long look. He's kind of squinting his face just a little bit, making a sourpuss face almost with his little facial hair.
No.
Yeah.
Come on,
that.
man.
He deciphered at that moment. He's like, I can't trust anything she says, so it doesn't matter anyway.
It doesn't matter what she says. Why did it even bother coming in?
Yeah. I don't want to go into it too much because we're going to keep everything separately, but Solo does have that very quick throwaway line specifically about IT Power when they're talking about getting the pump back on. So I thought that was really cool that Silo 17 is talking about IT Power and 18 is also talking about IT Power.
And it's the only reason why we learned about IT Power in the first place is because at the beginning of the season, it's like, oh, how come you guys have power? You know, IT has its own separate power supply. Steve Zahn's character says this. and we're like, wait. And then you see Lucas Kyle exposing that, oh, wait, not only does IT have a separate power source, the Judicial does as well. What? Are? Nani? Anime. Anyway. There's two specific Easter eggy things that I caught in this episode.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what either of them means.
Okay.
Let's go to the soft one. Lucas Kyle gets to the legacy. Not soft duty, Rachel. It's soft Easter eggs. Soft Easter eggs. God, soft boiled Easter eggs. Weirdo. So he gets the legacy. And then there's the stars thing. Oh, Meadows told me. I was like, you could feel it in Holland's heart. He's like, that lady was very special. Anyway, so I guess so, right? Because there's these reminders and it hurts him. And in the legacy, there are these electronic digital screens that are flashing different pieces of art. And one in particular, it's this wide shot with Lucas Kyle on one end and Bernard Holland on the other. And in the middle, there's one of these digital screens. For some reason, it's a portrait screen, which is accurate if today is the day that they're referring to as the day everything ended, 352 years ago. Great number to throw out there. Anyway, let's move on. So it's a portrait digital screen. And in it is a frame from a tapestry. And that tapestry, because I looked it up and I matched the image search, it's from what's called the Devonshire hunting tapestries. Specifically, this tapestry is called the Boar and Bear Hunt. This particular tapestry evokes much desire, quote unquote, and also the pursuit of love, quote unquote, in what is in this episode, but much desire for both. Holland towards Meadows, no longer there, and she was hunted down by Bernard. And also the pursuit of love with Knox and Shirley. So I thought that was a little interesting. And there's also a little bit of a hunt going on because there's the sort of assassination plot that is in the message sent down to scavenging. But you find out later that it's like, well, we just wanted to send the message down so that people in the mechanical would hear about it. And maybe one of them would actually do the dirty work for them. The listeners, whatever.
I remember Bernard mentioning art. I think I missed it. There were digital screens up all over the room.
There was so much happening
art.
in that
There was
scene.
a lot to take in, yeah.
For us not
There is
having
a lot to
seen
take in.
it,
Right.
to finally get to see it, it was so overwhelming.
It was a lot.
Because there were so many shelves and there were so many things on the shelves. And all I could think of is the TV series and the movies also is where it came from. The Librarians.
Oh my God. Wow.
That's what it reminded me of.
Well, here, let me show you the Devonshire hunting tapestries. So this is the boar and the bear hunt tapestry. So the little piece that you see on the screen is this part here. I don't know if you could see my mouse. This part here with the guy with the funny hat and the lady right next to him.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Bernard and his shadow, his former shadow, Judge Meadows. But yeah, you can see the whole tapestry here. It's a 4-part tapestry, 1430 to 1450, medieval Renaissance, in a time where most people, even nobles, couldn't read. And so they had to depict their daily lives and the garish clothing that they would wear. They even spoke about in this one piece here, this rich red gown that this woman's wearing here is made out of Baltic squirrel fur. And so you have to imagine how many squirrels would have to be hunted down to make this one particular dress. The lining on this scale would have required hundreds of skins taken from squirrels killed during the winter months.
Wait, the tapestry actually had that as the lining?
That's the interesting thing, because I don't think so, but it's depicting this particular type of fur.
I don't know. It says it was lined with it. It would have degraded over time.
Oh, yeah, for 100%. And that's the reason why they relied on tapestries, because they could be transported too with minimal damage, because it's a tapestry. It's not actual paint that needs to be treated and protected and framed.
Is the legacy the room that they're in, or is it the tablet that he's holding?
It's the room that they're in, because the tablet contains both digital and the referential physical material that's in that room.
I assumed
the
that
room is
everything as a
everything.
whole was the legacy. The iPad, the room, all of the artifacts, essentially. Every piece of human history that's been archived and saved is the legacy.
Yeah,
right?
pre-silo knowledge as much as humanly possible.
What they want people to know anyway, because Bernard admits himself he tried to find certain information that was not available. They chose what they want to be known.
Information relating to the silo itself is what he was referring to, like why we got here, how we got here, why are we here in the silo?
Right, that's not there. Exactly.
But why wouldn't that be in there?
Exactly.
It's interesting.
That's interesting. And I could see the answer being, well, isn't it obvious to the person who made this? And so that's not what the purpose of this legacy is. The legacy is what we were as a people before. It's like the irony. We go so far into so many lengths in the silo to destroy what we were, or at least destroy remnants.
It's such a huge missing piece. We're going to tell you everything about people and what life was like before the silo, but we're not going to tell you why that doesn't exist anymore.
And what if that is what Salvador Quinn is talking about? Because here is the second Easter egg. And I think you knew I was going to bring this to your attention.
That's why I said what I said, David. I'm serving it up for you.
You always do. And you say you're dumb, but I keep telling you, I'm going to keep pointing the finger like a dummy. Oh, why are you so valuable? Because you do these things sometimes. So Lucas Kyle says that it's a Abash cipher. Abash cipher is the alphabet backwards, and then however many spaces. But Abash is technically just go negative on the actual number representation of the letter. So Z is A and Y is B, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which leads him to the fact that, oh, wait a minute, these letters are actually numbers. And what that leads him to figure out is that it's a book cipher. A book cipher is a referential numerical value that points you to, and what you need to know as a person in order to unlock the cipher is what book it's from. And that's how you'll find out the message. And here is the book. Obviously, if we're referring to The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, the page is page 77. And here are the contents. This was to be an eventful day for the travelers. They had hardly been walking an hour when they saw before them a great ditch that crossed the road and divided the forest as far as they could see on either side. It was a very wide ditch, and when they crept up to the edge and looked into it, they could see it was also very deep, and there were many big, jagged rocks at the bottom. The sides were so steep that none of them could climb down, and for a moment it seemed like their journey must end. What? I find it very ironic that this passage is revealed right around the time we figure out, oh, Silo's getting a 3rd and 4th season, which I'm happy to mention. There's a little bit of housekeeping that we should have mentioned here, rather than I think it was Earth Abides when we mentioned it. I continue. What shall we do? Asked Dorothy despairingly. I haven't the faintest idea, said the Tin Woodsman. And the Lion shook his shaggy mane and looked thoughtful. But the Scarecrow said, we cannot fly, that is certain. Neither can we climb down into this great ditch. Therefore, if we cannot jump over it, we must stop where we are. Goddamn Scarecrow. I think I could jump over it, said the Cowardly Lion, after measuring the distance carefully in his mind. Then we are all right, answered the Scarecrow, for you can carry us all over on your back one at a time. Well, I'll try it, said the lion. Who will go first? That's the page. What that means? I have no idea.
He could have chosen a page at random. What he needs are the words on the page. And when you lay out the numbers, it's going to put those words in a different order. And that's going to be the message. I don't think the page itself or any particular meaning behind it has anything to do with the message from Quinn.
Possibly. But sometimes, as we all know, the page itself is meant for you, the audience. So I thought maybe,
Okay. I mean, that's
maybe
fair.
there's something here.
That's fair. But I think the
you're
cipher
right.
we're going to find out is just words pulled from that page
And rearranged.
Yes.
To make this message, basically.
Yes.
And that's the whole point, sure.
What's interesting is that they're at this deep ditch. The silo is essentially a deep well, and they can't get over it or go into it, which is ironic because now they are all in it.
But could also point to your theory. Well, we can't save this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So might as well jump over to another one.
Yep. We have to stop right here and go.
Oh, we've made a big mistake and we still have to dig silos.
Yeah.
Or, okay, let's take this a little bit further. How about this? You could be right. And maybe most of humanity is off-world. And the people that weren't so lucky had to live underground. Let's say most of humanity is on Mars, let's say. Thanks, Elon Musk.
Now we're going to get canceled. Way to go, Dave.
Thanks, Elon Musk. I appreciate you. And so the rest of humanity stuck on Earth, as we've seen in countless good and bad movies, is stuck there. And so what do? Well, they didn't quite make it over the chasm, so they had to go underground. That's a reality for them, probably. Because we've brought this up in various ways about paper and maybe even about the hunting photo. Maybe there's something there about privilege. Maybe the people that had to go underground weren't so lucky as the privileged few who could make it and colonize another world and maybe live on the surface there somehow. If they could make a silo in an unlivable planet called Earth, couldn't they make a inhabitable world habitable for people to live in a normal life, like a bubble of some kind on the surface? Anything is possible, but the feeling of privilege is there somewhere. When it came to the tapestry, the tapestries are for rich people, etc. Paper is a luxury and it's recycled and written over and over again, just like everything in the silo. Everything is reused, everything is recycled, everything is precious because there's no choice. Maybe between those two Easter eggs, it tells us something more.
I like that.
Who is Martin Glynn?
Deanna. Oh.
Marty Glynn was a known listener in the Down Deep.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
He said the name and I was like, who's Marty Glynn?
So before he was talking to Martin
I got you.
about the handle in one of the bins and
Yes. Got
scavenging.
it. Makes sense. Okay, great.
And it links it to Maeve and that's the whole thing. You just
Okay.
get
Thank you.
his surname later on with Maeve.
Gotcha.
Or Francis, I think it was. Maybe. I can't remember.
It
which.
was with Francis. Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to Marty Glynn, Hank, with his usual pulling up his pants. Talk to Marty Glynn. It's like, I can't get out of my head.
I love
Billings
Hank.
had that sheriff moment where he stuck his thumbs in his pockets. Oh, hey. Sorry, I love you guys. It's great. I love the imagery. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else from Silo 18.
I knew.
It was hilarious. Because here's the thing that was the most hilarious that I think Bridget might appreciate is that before we figured out it was for sure Silo 18 and 17, I was referring to it as Silo Prime. And you sort of said that, but without saying it, you called it Original Silo. And I was looking at Bridget intently. She goes, got another fucking Dave here. It's not Silo Prime, David. There's so many. And I'm like,
Original.
It's the Silo. This is the one we know, Bridget. Why are you yelling at
Original
me all the time?
recipe. Silo.
Oh, now you're on board.
Maybe.
When Rachel says it's fine.
I didn't realize how hard it was to remember the numbers.
At bash, reversing the alphabet. I said a bash, I meant at bash. I love all these terms, by the way. Oh, and man, that's another reason why I wanted to be there for last week, because just going through some of these, the Caesar shift, I just have to say this out loud. You have to understand how important that was for me in my early days in IT, because a lot of the viruses, when they were like cool viruses, viruses that would do things that were just objectively cool. This one virus that I fixed had to do with changing the file names by doing a Caesar shift. It reversed the letters of each file name and also numbers one letter back. And so to fix it, you had to write a script that actually renamed them one letter forward. This is cool stuff that I was doing in my
very
early
exciting
days.
for you.
Yeah. But these are like, this is when hackers were trying to be mischievous more than malicious.
This
And
is
so it
back
was
when
kind of
Hackers,
fun.
the movie, came out, and Dave thought, if I go into IT, I'm going to be so cool.
And I was like the golden child.
Girls are gonna like me.
You have to understand, me figuring this out on my own was such a thrill. I was Avi Nash.
Yeah.
And just figuring all this stuff out. I connected with it on such a level. And even like the whole 5 letters back thing, I've seen that too. It's just so much fun. It's really scary because you're dealing with business assets. But then when you can figure it out, the thing where it really sucks is when, this is the worst one that I've ever encountered. All the file names are the same. Everything's the same. But what they did was they zeroed out the data. All the files were there, just zero bytes. That's the worst. Because like it looks like everything is there, but there's no content in the file.
That's horrible.
Because you
That's
can't
horrible.
recover it. There's no recovery option unless you have a
Sounds
backup.
terrible.
Why don't we go to Silo 17? That's the one that got
No,
destroyed.
I know. I'm trying to. This is me trying to remember.
17 less than 18, so there's less people there.
Oh, okay. See, that helps.
I'm good at that stuff. But I want to focus on something that has bothered both of us. And that was Steve Zahn. Crazy. Let's kind of fix my silo. Dude, there's 10,000 people that we know and love. We as the audience know that may be doing something stupid. He might do something dumb. It might go outside just like your silo. He does make this really good point. And he goes, you don't know if you go outside and you'll never come back. The suit fails and you come back inside. And then maybe you don't even get to go in the silo and you can't make it back. And then what if they let you in the silo and they don't let you leave? And I was like, okay.
So many reasons.
He
Damn,
was
you're so right.
correct. Yeah.
What if
Promise
they
I'll come
kill
back. It's
you?
like, yeah, you could want to come back. They might not let you ever live again.
Mm-hmm.
Can we all agree that we all felt stupid because of what he says? Because you guys in the last episode, me in the episode 2 episodes ago going, oh God, I don't like what he's going. Because first of all, he killed those people. For sure, he killed those people. Maybe.
We knew it had to play out this way.
But then again, it's like, the crazy guy is right. You're here now. You might not be here later to fix this thing for
Well,
him, I guess. The premise
Maybe he's not
is
that
stupid.
crazy, Dave.
He's just a child in the brain. But I just wanted to get your reaction to that.
In the brain.
'cause he's a child in the brain. It's true. I feel sheepish.
Yes, from his perspective, he needed it fixed and everything. But well, I don't know. By the end of this episode, I don't know anymore. But I'm still pushing for him joining Silo 18.
That's a taller order because considering what he says makes what he says about just Juliet coming back already difficult. Imagine he and Juliet going back. It's
Well,
like,
sure. I mean,
I
it's
don't know.
definitely a risk, and him staying there, especially with a fixed working pump, ensures that he can continue on. Maybe.
Oh, I thought there was more to that. Maybe.
Well, we're not there yet.
Well, what happened, Dave?
Yeah,
What
at the end,
What happened? Seems like there's somebody else in that silo.
he's not so solo, is he?
Unless he really is crazy and hurt himself.
Why would he do
Don't
that?
take the fun out of it, Dave.
And he has
Come
a
on.
DID thing going on and he has multiple personalities.
I don't think
Clearly,
so.
we saw one of them.
If he was going to hurt himself, I think he would have done it a long time ago, not after he found someone he could connect
What happened
with.
to your eye? Maybe he did it to himself. He tried to kill his other personality, the one that lashed out at Juliet 2 episodes ago.
I'm starting to piece together. Maybe he's not as crazy as we thought he was. He's obviously very frustrated. He's trying to like get Juliet to understand that he has to stay and that he has to do certain things certain ways. But I'm starting to wonder, does he have to make sure it's locked because there's other people living there and he just failed to mention that? Are there people there that know who he really is and they're trying to work against him? Are they the ones who left the message on the wall that they're going to get in eventually?
And where are they in such a limited amount of floors? Anything is possible on that front too, which is a surprise for us when we see the blood spatter and all that everywhere. And the rope cut with the axe thing. And it was cool to see her swim up to the top though. She learned that trick. She's like, well, I could float to the top, but then I could also kick with my arms and legs.
Well, that's what made me wonder, why would he tell her that if he didn't want her to live? He gave her all of this information before she went down. If his whole plan the entire time was to leave her down there, which is what we're all led to believe once the rope falls down, you're like, oh,
I didn't think that
he's
though.
trapping her down there. He doesn't want her to live, but that doesn't make any sense because he doesn't want her to get the bends. He doesn't want her to not know how to swim. He's sharing all this information that we now know. He goes into there and just asks the thing how to do things. How do you see underwater?
For 40 years.
Mhm.
So that's the only thing that's been clear. It's just that he does have a problem with accepting the reality that he isn't the shadow of IT or the head of IT. But everything else points to the fact that he really does value Juliet's company, wants somebody to talk to, and her specifically, compared to everybody else that's tried to kill him clearly over the years or something to that effect, with the messages and all that stuff and the dead bodies outside the IT vault door or the legacy door, whatever you want to call it at this point. You do get a little glimpse of the quarters from Silo 18's vault too. I thought that was kind of cool. You see the little mountainous Swiss Alps sort of mountainside situation.
Like a ski chalet. It looks
Chalet
like.
sort of,
It was
yeah.
very interesting. Yeah.
In summer or something. Because in another portrait, they're trying to tell us that it's this time. This is when it happens. Because everybody's doing things in portrait for some reason.
I was just so excited to finally see into the room.
Me too.
I was like, yes.
And it wasn't that bad
Waiting so
either.
long.
There's multiple rooms. He didn't light a fire. Didn't have a fire in the middle of the room to kind of cook food.
Where is the food coming from? Because he's like, the food's pretty good. So there's some way that you can access food from that room, which is crazy.
This is like the mines all over again. We're never going to see it.
I
never
need
gonna
to see it.
You're not going to see it, Bridget. It's like a replicator. And holy crap, the voice of the computer is kind of sexy. On multiple levels, the voice itself, but also the fact that there's a Delta level event happening in the main
Of course, David would
who
find
are
a
you
computer
even?
voice sexy.
Yes. Yes, obviously.
Obviously.
I need to know my competition. But still, the Delta level event happening in the main shaft. Cool. Not only can you speak to it and it responds, but it alerts you via voice. Hey, buddy. Hey, Bernard. There's something happening.
It's not just like a flashing light. It's specifically telling you. Yeah. And what did she call it? A level 2 Delta
A Delta
event?
level event.
Delta level event.
What is that?
What do you think that is referring to? The explosion or?
I think more the incendiary device, the detection of gunpowder maybe in the air.
Okay. That makes sense.
There's a fire on the silo.
I mean, that would be pretty
That's what the voice should have sounded like.
catastrophic to have a fire in a silo.
Yeah. Could be anything fire related.
I thought that was pretty cool.
A detonation, let's just say.
Okay, so my knee-jerk reaction is, holy crap, there's someone in silo 17. With Solo. He's not been alone this whole time. Juliet's also been there for a while, and she's just roaming all over the place. So who is this person, and why have they not come forward sooner?
I think they were biding their time to figure out when was the best time to take action.
Why not the first time she was underwater? This is the second time she's been submerged.
She wasn't as far underwater.
Okay, that's fair. She only went one level down before, right?
Yes, correct. Because remember, the rope was tied around her waist. So she was
And
still
like
fairly
held her breath.
close.
They could have easily killed her, too.
And maybe Solo's quote unquote Solo, because in my notes it's just Steve Zahn now.
Yeah, Steve Zahn.
The instinct for Solo to run back to IT could have been an instinct about whoever is left behind, maybe.
Oh, when he had that
protect the
panic
room.
during the first,
Because why else have that panic if he didn't think there was somebody else in the
That's
silo
what
that
I'm
could
saying.
have
And she
gone
kept
through that
saying,
door?
she's like, no one else is here.
Yeah.
What does it matter? I don't know that he ever denied there being somebody else there.
That's true.
And there's a concerted effort to say, I'm not sure if this person is real, too. This person meaning not Rebecca first, Juliet herself. Because fair point, whoever this was may have been tormenting them and just running away off the camera feed and being like, oh, I'm going to make him think he's crazy for 40 years or something like that, to that effect. And then when his guard is dropped.
They could legitimately be unwell also.
To be certain, it was yes.
Yeah.
But let's go around the room and definitively say, because I feel like it's worth saying, because my instinct is to say that this is a dual personality DID situation, because he's had to pretend for so long to be something that he's not, that it's possible that this is another side of him playing out.
I don't want it. I don't like it.
I don't want it either. Just like I don't want him to have killed those people. But here we are.
I'm really angry that you're even bringing this up, because that means there's a good chance it's true, and I don't want it to be.
Because you want him to be a part of a society, and maybe he shouldn't.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's really the bigger picture going on. I do believe, not just because I want to, not hopeful, wishful thinking, kind of think there is another person there. Mostly because it would make for, I think, a more interesting storyline.
I think DID is way more interesting, but I take your point. Because
I
it's a
feel
twist,
like it would be,
right? M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, I feel like DID would be too complicated. Another person is a manageable storyline. DID, that's too complicated.
But doesn't that require a lot
like.
more explanation? There being another person after all this time?
They're not going to tell us how Steve Zahn's been eating for 40 years, so I think
No,
they
I'm
can
fine
get
with
away
that.
with not giving us all the information.
He got his
Whoever
food
this
from
other
the
person
mines.
is, whoever this other person is, would also need a food source. Otherwise, how have they survived?
That's more of an explanation, though, isn't it? See,
Yeah.
IT makes sense because that's a fact that is in the air. That okay, somehow there's food, but everywhere else?
What if we find out this other person also got banished from their silo and they're not even originally from 17?
Another traveler, you're saying, from another silo who just came in somehow.
Maybe someone just got there.
From the bottom?
From 16. Maybe they came from silo 16.
Well, that, or did they live together in the legacy and Steve Zahn decided he didn't want to deal with this person anymore and kicked him out?
Ooh, yeah.
There's a couple different things that could have happened that would have led to this.
But it's
And
the finding
Juliet
of
hasn't
food.
been there that long that they wouldn't be starving yet. You can live 3 weeks without food.
The only way somebody else being there would be great is taking for granted all the scenes where Juliet is going room to room, finding things, looking for things, not just for the helmet and all that stuff, but then we miss a bunch of little details of there being evidence of somebody trying to look for other things too, like food, for instance. The one thing that I was just obsessed over in the first episode. Okay, when's she gonna eat? When's she gonna eat? When's she gonna eat? Because I get obsessed with little things like that are a big thing for a person like us who's worried that we don't have food anymore. We don't have a food source. We may have oxygen, we may have some water, but we have no food, and you can only last so long.
There is nothing better to me in a television show than when they go back and reveal something and all of those little pieces were there if you just paid better attention.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most gratifying thing in the world.
When you love being wrong, that I thought I paid closer
just that
attention
it
to
was
these
right
things.
You just
there.
go back and you're like, how did I miss all of that?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's like, no, you weren't supposed
Yeah.
to. Like, how did we miss that Robert Sims is actually kind of a nice guy who's just trying to follow the law? He wasn't as threatening. He wasn't the boogeyman we thought he was.
Right.
That's a great thing, though, being obviously wrong. He's still threatening, but you get him. You understand him better. You kind of want to be wrong about some things because, hi, I love surprises. Love little twisties. I'm not going to say it again, Shyamalan.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway. Oh, tiny little detail. Even the bell that they have hooked up to the rope has the little ornate designs, the little triangle-y sort of designs that are littered throughout the silo. But wait, hold on a second. Were those designs on the bell before? Because
Before
you do get
what?
to see, okay, he holds up the bell prior to hanging it on the rope. He goes, hey, there's a little bell here.
Mhm.
And then you get a closer up look when she's ringing the bell, and you can actually visibly see the ornate designs, the little triangle line things, almost look like Mayan sort of situation. But I didn't see it before when he was holding the bell. He either did it himself prior to hanging it, or the other person drew on it or something. It's one of those
The
things
other
where like,
person.
oh, I didn't notice it before, and now it's there, and oh, I feel stupid. Like, that's one of those maybe. Well, if you like what you just heard, just write me a personal message. But if you liked this episode for what it's worth, or if you didn't really like this episode, or if you have something to say about this episode, we'd appreciate it if you rated us or write a review on ratethispodcast.com/walkingdead. Leave us 5 stars and a bell emoji to let us know that you love us, but write more. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell us what you think we might have missed. Just remember to tell us after every single episode. It really does help us with our little presence on the internet. And if you really like what you've heard, head on over to either Ko-fi or Patreon and just follow us there so that you can get notifications on when we record, because following is free. Attending our recording sessions is free. The only thing is that we do not post our schedules on social media. We only post them on ko-fi.com/walkingdead or patreon.com/walkingdead for you to attend. But take your support further, because it is supporting us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, enable all notifications for when we go live, for when these episodes appear. We're dangerously close to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. We could really use your help nudging us over the edge. And you can tip us on Ko-fi and receive our unedited episode recordings, as well as my pre-squawk insights. I think we got most of them in this episode, which is kind of great, but there's always some things that we miss. And there's a reference link to the Devonshire hunting tapestries that you can click and see the rest of them and all the references to that. So it'd be kind of cool. Also the pages for the Wizard of Oz from L. Frank Baum for 30 days. You'll also get Discord access forever. Take your support further and join a membership tier for as little as $4 a month. You'll get more Discord access to more channels, sections even. You'll have the ability to get our unedited episodes, pre-squawk insights perpetually. And if you happened to join the Whispers, Survivors, or Great M tier, you'll get a free classic t-shirt upon signing up. And if you join the Survivors or Great M tier, you can show up with us on screen, breaking these episodes down alongside us as a junior host. I've been your host, David Cameo, and I was joined by
Cosmom09 and
Bridget. You can reach me at youtube.com/@punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER.
And thanks so much for attending this little discussion that we had on Silo's 7th episode of its 2nd season, titled The Dive, The Climb, The Walk, The Swim.
No, just the dive.
I noted on every scene that she's doing different things. Oh, she's diving. She's walking across the platform.
Oh my gosh. She's
plugging
breathing.
in
She's
the power.
blinking. No, she's
blinking.
pointing.
She's
Oh my
climbing.
gosh.
She's swimming. But that was kind of fun.
That's it.
Anyway.
I'm out of here.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, I guess. Fine. All right. I just didn't want to say goodbye. I love you guys so much. Thank you again for making it to the end of yet another episode of Squawking Dead. This one, the 7th episode of Silo's 2nd season, titled The Dive. We really appreciate you tuning in and enjoying these conversations and enjoying Silo along with us. And as always, at the end of every episode, we like to thank our supporters, namely our Great M, Survivors, and Whispers members in that order, starting with the Great M tier, the Greatest-ish tier. We have at RealRyanGM on Instagram and X, Survivors member Douglas Atherton, at Walking Dead Artist 2 on Instagram. Moving on to the Whispers tier, we have ko-fi.com/fanartlindy. On Instagram, we have at ElisaJones71. And on Facebook, we have at Kim.Rowley, the number 1. As you may or may not have noticed, we could use a little bit more of your support, judging by the amount of names that we just announced. We could use all the help that we can get to make these episodes even better, to be able to afford the editing in order to tackle even more shows that you love for us to talk about. And as always, we love to hear feedback on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and if we could be doing more. We'd love to hear your ideas. You can do that either in the comment section to the YouTube video, or like we said earlier, ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead and leave those messages in a review. It's very, very helpful. We will put that on social media, and we'll even talk about it in the next episode. Last but definitely not least, Happy New Year. We hope that your 2025 is a year of growth, of just like in this podcast, appreciating the value in all things, not focusing on the negative, and shouting from the rooftops all the good things you have in your life. Like these shows that we break down. They're a joy. They make life better. And I hope that you see Squawking Dead as that kind of an outlet for you. So remember, in the meantime, that we are Squawking Dead.